Have you ever felt a pain so deep it seemed unbearable, only to realize later it taught you more than joy ever could? What if every ache, every heartbreak, every moment of suffering is not a curse, but a secret teacher, guiding you toward wisdom, strength, and a deeper understanding of yourself and the universe? Today, we uncover the hidden lessons that pain carries and why it is one of humanity's greatest guides. The question of pain has haunted humanity since the first cries rose beneath the sky. It is the universal inheritance we never asked for, a silent signature written into our bodies, our hearts, our destinies. Every culture, every age, every wandering soul eventually encounters it. Pain arrives uninvited, slipping into our lives like a stern visitor, a messenger carrying truths that comfort will never dare whisper. To speak of pain is to speak of the very architecture of existence, for it shapes us as surely as rivers carve valleys and stars collapse into light. Yet in this heaviness, there is also a strange gift, one that reveals itself only to those who do not turn away. At first glance, it feels almost offensive to call pain a teacher. Pain wounds, it interrupts, it seems to break what was whole. Why would we name as teacher that which feels like an enemy? And yet, history, philosophy, and lived experience tell us again and again that growth rarely comes draped in ease. Comfort lulls us into stillness, but pain shakes us awake. It strips away illusions and pretenses, laying bare what we truly are. In the ancient myths, it is the trial, the descent, the struggle with monsters that forges the hero. Without the darkness of the underworld, there is no return with treasure. Pain is the crucible, and through it the hidden gold of the soul is revealed. Think of the seed buried in soil. Its outer shell must split, a violent rupture, before the green shoot can pierce the surface. That breaking is not a mistake, but the essential condition of growth. Or consider the sculptor's chisel striking against marble. Each blow may seem destructive, but it is precisely through subtraction, through the cutting away, that the figure inside is freed. Pain, in this way, becomes the cosmic sculptor, removing what is false, shaping us into beings of greater depth. Modern life, with its worship of comfort, often tries to deny pain its place. We are taught to numb it, medicate it, distract ourselves from it. We cover it over with constant stimulation, with bright screens and endless noise. Yet in that avoidance we miss the hidden message. Pain is not here merely to hurt. Pain is a compass. It points toward what matters, toward what must be healed, toward what has been ignored or forgotten. When the body aches, it tells us something is unbalanced. When the heart aches, it tells us something is unlived, unresolved, or unspoken. Pain is the voice of reality breaking through the dream, insisting that we wake. There is also a cosmic dimension to this truth. The universe itself seems woven from a fabric of tension and release, expansion and collapse. Stars are born in the pressure of gravity. Galaxies form in the wake of cosmic violence. Creation and destruction are not enemies, but partners in a dance as old as time. Our personal pain reflects this universal rhythm. It is the microcosm mirroring the macrocosm, the trembling note of our lives resonating with the vast symphony of being. When we suffer, we participate in a process that is larger than ourselves, a pattern etched into the bones of existence. Philosophers and mystics across centuries have pointed to this paradox. The Buddha, upon seeing sickness, old age, and death, recognized that suffering is the doorway to awakening. The Stoics taught that adversity reveals character and that what feels like misfortune is often the seed of wisdom. Jung spoke of the shadow, of the necessary confrontation with what wounds us in order to emerge whole. Pain, then, is not an aberration but a threshold. It is the teacher that leads us out of innocence into depth, out of illusion into truth, out of fragmentation into integration. Yet the greatness of this teacher lies not only in its harshness, but in its intimacy. Pain does not speak in abstract theories. It does not stand at a distance. It comes close, pressing against the very fibers of our being. It is personal, undeniable, impossible to ignore. Through it, we are forced into presence. No one can outsource their pain. No one can delegate it to another. It insists that we face ourselves directly, here and now. In that confrontation, masks fall away, and we stand exposed before the mirror of reality. Pain, in its strange way, demands authenticity. But to call pain a teacher is not to romanticize it, nor to diminish the depth of suffering that people endure. There are wounds so deep they silence words, traumas that echo through generations. To learn from pain does not mean to celebrate it or to deny its cruelty. It means to recognize that within even the harshest winters lie the hidden seeds of spring. Pain does not only destroy, it also instructs. It whispers lessons about resilience, humility, compassion, and the interwoven fragility of all life. It breaks us, but in that breaking, it opens a space where transformation can occur. Philosophers and mystics across centuries have pointed to this paradox. The Buddha, upon seeing sickness, old age, and death, recognized that suffering is the doorway to awakening. The Stoics taught that adversity reveals character and that what feels like misfortune is often the seed of wisdom. Jung spoke of the shadow, of the necessary confrontation with what wounds us, in order to emerge whole. Pain, then, is not an aberration but a threshold. It is the teacher that leads us out of innocence into depth, out of illusion into truth, out of fragmentation into integration. Yet the greatness of this teacher lies not only in its harshness, but in its intimacy. Pain does not speak in abstract theories. It does not stand at a distance. It comes close, pressing against the very fibers of our being. It is personal, undeniable, impossible to ignore. Through it, we are forced into presence. No one can outsource their pain. No one can delegate it to another. It insists that we face ourselves directly, here and now. In that confrontation, masks fall away, and we stand exposed before the mirror of reality. Pain, in its strange way, demands authenticity. But to call pain a teacher is not to romanticize it, nor to diminish the depth of suffering that people endure. There are wounds so deep they silence words, traumas that echo through generations. To learn from pain does not mean to celebrate it or to deny its cruelty. It means to recognize that within even the harshest winters lie the hidden seeds of spring. Pain does not only destroy, it also instructs. It whispers lessons about resilience, humility, compassion, and the interwoven fragility of all life. It breaks us, but in that breaking, it opens a space where transformation can occur. Core themes and concepts. To understand why pain stands as such a profound teacher, we must linger with its essence, not merely as a bodily sensation or an emotional sting, but as a phenomenon that reveals patterns about existence itself. Pain is not a random intrusion, but a messenger, and the themes it conveys speak to truths woven into the fabric of both our inner and outer worlds. To explore these concepts is to notice how suffering pulls back the veil and exposes what lies beneath the surface of our lives. One of the first lessons pain insists upon is impermanence. When we are comfortable, we fall easily into the illusion that things are fixed and will last forever. Pleasure, success, health, even the people we love, all feel as though they are stable. But pain disrupts that illusion. A sudden illness, a heartbreak, a loss, or even the ache in our muscles after exertion reminds us that nothing stands still. Pain teaches us that existence is a river, always moving, carrying us along whether we consent or resist. This awareness, though difficult, opens the door to humility. It humbles our grasping, softens our arrogance, and reorients us toward gratitude for what we have, knowing it may vanish tomorrow. Pain also carries the theme of limitation. In a world that constantly tells us we can be anything, do anything, achieve everything, pain reminds us of the contours of our humanity. We bleed, we break, we falter, we tire. These limits are not cruel jokes, but boundaries that define who we are. The bruise on the skin, the heartbreak in the chest, the exhaustion in the bones, all of them say, "You are finite." Yet in acknowledging that finitude, we come closer to truth. We discover empathy because we see our fragility mirrored in others. Pain makes us recognize that no one is untouchable, no one invincible. In that recognition lies the seed of compassion, the understanding that to be human is to walk together in shared vulnerability. There is also the theme of transformation. Pain refuses to let us remain unchanged. It shakes us loose from old identities, strips away comforts that no longer serve, and demands that we adapt or perish. In this way, pain is both a destroyer and a midwife. It breaks down what is false, but in that breaking, it clears the way for something new to emerge. Consider the fire that consumes the forest. To the casual eye, it looks like devastation, but ecologists know that fire releases seeds locked inside cones, clears the underbrush, and returns nutrients to the soil. Without it, the forest stagnates. Pain does the same in our lives. It may burn away our illusions, but it also prepares the ground for new growth. Another theme pain communicates is honesty. Pain refuses to let us live entirely in delusion. When something hurts, whether physically or emotionally, it demands attention. It unmasks the stories we tell ourselves and forces us to acknowledge what we would rather ignore. A strained relationship, a neglected dream, an unhealthy body. All these speak through pain when we have refused to listen otherwise. It is the soul's way of sounding the alarm, a red light flashing on the dashboard of existence. In this way, pain teaches us to stop lying to ourselves, to confront the reality that comfort alone conceals. There is also the paradoxical lesson of strength. We often think of strength as the absence of pain, as being so powerful that nothing can touch us. But true strength, as every seasoned soul eventually learns, is forged precisely through suffering. Muscles only grow when torn and rebuilt. Courage only arises in the face of fear. Wisdom only matures when tested by hardship. Pain is the forge, and we are the iron placed within it. Without the heat, the metal remains brittle. With it, we emerge tempered, resilient, and capable of carrying burdens we once thought impossible. Yet perhaps the deepest theme pain teaches is connection. At first, suffering seems isolating. It makes us feel cut off, trapped in our own private agony. But when we step back, we discover that pain is the one language every human being speaks. Across cultures and centuries, across lines of race, class, or creed, pain is the common denominator. It unites us in our shared fragility. When we meet another in their suffering, our own wounds resonate. Compassion is born. We realize that pain is not a wall but a bridge, not an obstacle to love, but the very foundation of empathy. Seen together, these themes reveal why pain is more than an accident or a curse. It is a teacher because it awakens us to impermanence, reminds us of our limitations, presses us toward transformation, demands honesty, forges strength, and deepens connection. Pain is not kind in the way we might prefer, but it is relentless in its truth. And in a world filled with illusions and distractions, there may be no greater gift than a teacher who refuses to let us sleep through life. In the sections that follow, we will step into symbolic landscapes where these themes come alive in allegory and myth. For the stories humanity has told across ages are themselves born of pain, shaped by loss, trial, and transcendence. To see pain as teacher is not merely to endure it, but to enter its classroom willingly, with the courage to learn. Deeper symbolic narratives. If the raw concepts of pain teach us about impermanence, transformation, and connection, then the stories we tell about it give those lessons flesh and voice. Humanity has always turned to myth and symbol to hold what ordinary language cannot contain. Through allegory, we translate the invisible workings of suffering into images that stir the heart as much as the mind. To explore pain's role as a teacher, then, is to enter these deeper symbolic narratives, where the soul's journey mirrors the dramas of gods, heroes, and the cosmos itself. One of the most enduring symbols is the descent into the underworld. Nearly every ancient culture carries some tale of a figure who must travel into darkness, endure suffering, and emerge transformed. Orpheus seeking his beloved, Inanna stripped and humiliated before the throne of death, Christ descending into the tomb before resurrection. Each story is a mirror of the same truth. Pain is the underworld we all must enter. It strips us, humiliates us, confronts us with death and limitation, and only then, if we endure, does it offer the possibility of return. The journey is never without scars, but those scars are precisely what grant wisdom. To be human is to be a traveler who cannot avoid this passage, and to see pain as teacher is to accept the descent as necessary, not as punishment, but as initiation. Consider also the figure of the wounded healer, a motif that echoes from the myth of Chiron to the archetypes described by Jung. Chiron, immortal yet wounded, could never heal himself, yet his suffering gave him compassion and skill to heal others. This paradox, that our deepest wounds can become the source of our greatest gifts, lies at the heart of why pain teaches. Pain personalizes the universal. It embeds wisdom in flesh and bone, so that when we speak from our wounds, our words carry weight. Those who have suffered deeply often radiate an authenticity that cannot be faked. Their counsel is not abstract. It has been tested in fire. Pain marks the soul with credibility. The image of crucifixion is another profound symbol. Whether taken in its Christian context or as a universal motif, the cross represents the axis of suffering, the collision of human limitation and transcendent possibility. On the cross, pain is not denied but fully embraced, transformed into a passage that opens to resurrection. The crucifixion story embodies the paradox that through suffering comes redemption, that in the very act of being broken open, something greater than the self can be born. Every personal crisis echoes this cruciform pattern. We are nailed to circumstances beyond our control. We are pierced by the reality we cannot escape, and yet through endurance, we find a doorway to a wider dimension of being. In the natural world, symbols of pain's teaching abound. The caterpillar must dissolve into a formless soup before becoming a butterfly. The oyster's irritation becomes the pearl. The diamond forms only under immense pressure. These images remind us that beauty and strength are not born from ease but from processes that involve rupture, discomfort, and trial. Nature itself encodes the truth that pain is not an error but an alchemical agent, turning base material into treasure. Even our personal stories often take on symbolic resonance when we step back. The heartbreak that shattered us becomes the threshold to deeper self-knowledge. The illness that confined us becomes the lens through which we revalue life. The failure that humiliated us becomes the soil of humility and later success. When retold with awareness, these experiences take on mythic shape, becoming our own descent and return, our own crucifixion and resurrection. Pain, in this way, transforms biography into mythology. It invites us to see our lives not as random chains of suffering, but as narratives with depth and meaning, woven into archetypal patterns. Another symbolic frame is the furnace, the fire that refines. In alchemical traditions, the vessel must be subjected to heat for transformation to occur. Without fire, the elements remain crude and separate. With it, they merge into gold. Pain is the fire that refines the human heart. It burns away what is inessential, tests the integrity of our commitments, and reveals the gold hidden beneath the dross. This is why many mystics speak of the dark night of the soul, a period of emptiness and anguish that precedes awakening. In the fire of suffering, illusions melt, leaving only what is indestructible. There is also the paradoxical symbol of the wound as gateway. In myth and poetry alike, the wound is not only an injury, but also an opening. Through the crack in the vessel, light can enter. Through the fracture in the heart, compassion can flow. Leonard Cohen echoed this ancient truth when he wrote, "There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in." The wound is where the finite self touches the infinite, where the ego breaks open and allows something larger to pass through. Pain teaches not just by hurting us, but by enlarging us, turning the wound into a doorway to mystery. When we look at these symbols together, the descent, the healer, the crucifixion, the furnace, the wound, we begin to see a pattern that is not accidental but archetypal. Pain is the crucible of transformation across myth, nature, and personal story. It is not a detour from life's meaning, but its very center, the place where the raw material of existence is shaped into wisdom. To deny pain is to refuse the initiation that every soul is called to undertake. To embrace it, not in masochism but in awareness, is to step into the lineage of countless heroes, mystics, and seekers who have walked this path before us. The symbolic narratives do not make pain easier, but they make it meaningful. They remind us that our suffering, however private, is also universal, that we are participants in an eternal story. Pain, when seen through these lenses, becomes less of a curse and more of a rite of passage. It ceases to be meaningless torment and becomes instead the doorway through which we enter greater depth, practical integration, and real-world implications. To linger only in symbols and philosophies risks leaving the truth of pain floating in abstraction, a lofty constellation admired from afar but never walked beneath. Yet pain does not live only in myth. It lives in the body that aches when you rise in the morning, in the mind weighed down by grief, in the silent wound of betrayal, in the uncertainty of illness, in the loneliness of nights where no one answers your call. For pain to truly teach, its lessons must be integrated into the fabric of daily life. It must not only move us toward cosmic reflection, but also alter how we breathe, how we speak, how we treat one another when dawn breaks. The first way pain integrates itself is by slowing us down. In a world obsessed with velocity and productivity, pain forces us to pause. A broken bone keeps us still. A broken heart draws us inward. What at first feels like an obstruction often becomes an invitation to notice what we have neglected. The body that hurts may be calling us to rest, to nurture ourselves, to re-examine the pace at which we have been living. The heartbreak may be a summons to rediscover our own worth outside of another's gaze. Pain compels reflection, and in that slowing, it creates space for awareness to take root. Pain also shapes the way we connect to others. It strips away the arrogance that blinds us to another's suffering. When you have known loss, you recognize its shadow in another's eyes. When you have tasted despair, you learn to approach the despairing with gentleness rather than judgment. This transformation is not theoretical. It is embodied in the way you hold space for a grieving friend, in the patience you offer to a child struggling with fear, in the forgiveness you extend to someone stumbling through their own wounds. Pain teaches us that kindness is not weakness, but the only response that honors our shared fragility. In the realm of purpose, pain often redirects our trajectory. Many of the world's most profound movements, inventions, or works of art have been born out of struggle. The activist who fights for justice may be carrying scars of oppression. The healer who dedicates her life to mending others may be moved by wounds she could not heal in herself. The poet who writes words that stir the soul may be transmuting grief into song. Pain becomes a compass, pointing us toward what matters most, chiseling our vocation out of the raw material of experience. When integrated consciously, our suffering ceases to be a private burden and becomes a gift offered to the world. There is also the simple but profound way pain deepens gratitude. When health falters, the smallest return of strength feels miraculous. When loneliness stretches, the warmth of companionship feels sacred. When sorrow overwhelms, a fleeting moment of joy shines brighter than before. Pain sharpens our senses to the delicate beauty of what we once took for granted. It shifts our focus from absence to presence, from entitlement to appreciation. In this way, it rewires our perception of life, teaching us to notice the extraordinary hidden in the ordinary. Practically, pain also demands resilience. It is one thing to speak of transformation. It is another to live it when everything inside cries out for relief. The integration of pain means learning to sit with discomfort without immediately fleeing. It means developing practices that anchor us when storms rage: meditation, prayer, journaling, therapy, creative expression, or simply breathing through the ache without resistance. These practices are not about eliminating pain, but about befriending it, learning to listen without being consumed. When we cultivate resilience, we discover that the same pain that once threatened to destroy us can become the ground on which we stand with steadiness. In relationships, the implications of pain's teaching are profound. Too often, people imagine love as the avoidance of suffering, as though harmony were the absence of difficulty. Yet pain teaches us that true intimacy is forged not in the absence of wounds, but in the willingness to walk through them together. Conflict, misunderstanding, even heartbreak can become doorways to deeper connection if navigated with honesty and care. The couple that survives betrayal with humility and work may find a bond more resilient than before. The family that walks through grief together may discover a depth of unity untouched by easier days. Pain integrated into love does not dissolve affection, it sanctifies it. On a collective level, pain has always been the teacher that births change. Revolutions erupt from injustice, Civil rights movements emerge from collective wounds, and social reforms often follow periods of collective anguish. Pain reveals what is broken in systems as surely as it does in individuals. To integrate pain collectively is to listen to its message not only in our own hearts, but in the cries of the oppressed, the displaced, the forgotten. It demands that we shape societies not to numb or ignore suffering, but to learn from it, to use it as a compass pointing toward justice, equity, and compassion. Perhaps the most humbling implication of pain's teaching is its call to surrender. There are forms of suffering that cannot be fixed, only carried. Death, aging, the fragility of all things. These cannot be erased by willpower or wisdom. To integrate pain here is to bow before the mystery of existence, to recognize that being human means being breakable. And yet, in that surrender, we often find a surprising peace. By ceasing to fight against what cannot be changed, we free ourselves to walk with dignity, to honor the finite, to live fully even in the face of loss. Thus, in daily life, pain teaches us to slow down, to connect with compassion, to redirect our purpose, to savor gratitude, to build resilience, to deepen love, to transform societies, and to surrender with grace. Its classroom is not abstract but immediate, not distant but intimate. The lessons are written in the pulse of our bodies, in the tears of our eyes, in the trembling of our voices, in the silent endurance of our nights. To integrate them is to live not against reality but with it, to walk the path of transformation not in theory but in flesh. Conclusion and transformational call. If we step back, we see that pain is not the enemy we once believed it to be. It is a messenger, a sculptor, a guide. It strips away illusions, softens arrogance, and opens a space where truth can enter. Pain does not simply ask us to endure, it invites us to transform. To dismiss it as meaningless suffering is to miss its deeper role in shaping us into fuller, wiser beings. When we reflect on our own lives, we notice that the chapters we recall with the most gratitude are rarely the easiest. They are the times when something broke within us, an identity, a relationship, a dream, and from those fragments we built a self more authentic, more compassionate, more awake. Pain has always been the threshold, the crossing point between who we were and who we are becoming. This does not romanticize suffering. To call pain a teacher is not to say we should seek it out or glorify it. Rather, it is to acknowledge that since pain will inevitably find us, we have a choice: to resist it until it hardens us, or to listen to it until it transforms us. One path leaves us bitter, the other wiser. So the call is this: the next time pain enters your life, whether in small discomfort or deep heartbreak, pause and ask, not why me, but what is this here to teach me? Perhaps it is urging you to rest. Perhaps it is awakening empathy. Perhaps it is redirecting your path, breaking open your heart so it can hold more than before. In that moment of asking, you shift from victim to student. You reclaim the hidden gift inside the wound. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, you discover that pain is not only a great teacher, but also a faithful companion on the path to becoming fully human. As we step away from the shadow of pain, may you carry its lessons like a lantern into the depths of your own life. Let every wound, every ache, and every moment of struggle become a doorway to wisdom, compassion, and self-discovery. If this journey into the hidden architecture of the soul resonated with you, please help our channel grow and spread this message by liking, subscribing, and turning on notifications so the light of understanding can reach even more seekers. Share your reflections in the comments, and together we will explore the next mysteries that lie beyond the veil. Thank you for watching.